Imagine this. A young black girl, just trying to enjoy a peaceful afternoon, suddenly becomes the target of humiliation by a group of officers sworn to protect her. What starts as an innocent outing turns into a nightmare when these racist cops take things too far, throwing her into a fountain in broad daylight. Onlookers are stunned, but no one steps in to help. However, what these officers didn't see coming was the girl's family, a family with an unshakable bond and a relentless drive for justice. What happens next will leave you speechless. In this story, we'll uncover how a moment of cruelty turned into a powerful stand for dignity and respect, revealing the courage of one family determined to tow the young girl. Maya was only 16 and had been walking through the park with her headphones in, enjoying the warm afternoon. She wasn't bothering anyone, just minding her own business. But for some reason, these officers decided to stop her. At first, it seemed like they were just going to ask her a few questions, but things quickly escalated. Witnesses later said the officers appeared agitated, raising their voices and surrounding her. Maya tried to stay calm, but you could see the fear in her eyes. And then the unthinkable happened. They grabbed her, pushed her toward the fountain, and dumped her in. People in the park froze, unsure of what to do. Who would stand up to the police? Meanwhile, Maya's family wasn't far away. When they heard what happened, they were outraged. But instead of acting out of anger, they began planning something that no one expected. Make things right. Stick around, because this story takes an unexpected turn you won't want to miss. As Maya sat shivering in the fountain, humiliated and soaked, the chaos around her only seemed to grow. The cops were shouting at her to stand up, but she refused, her legs too weak from the shock of it all. Her mind raced. What had she done to deserve this? Was it just because of the color of her skin? The other parkgoers whispered among themselves, some recording the scene on their phones, but no one stepped in to help. It was as if fear of the police had silenced the crowd. Back at her family's home, Maya's older brother, Malik, was the first to hear about what happened. His heart dropped as his sister's voice cracked over the phone. He knew his sister wasn't the type to make up stories, especially not something so outlandish. As rage bubbled up inside him, he called his parents, who immediately got to work on the next steps. They weren't just going to let this go. But Maya's family wasn't alone in their outrage. A few of the bystanders who had witnessed the incident began speaking out as well, reaching out to local news outlets and social media. Word spread quickly, and soon the whole city was talking about it. The cops were already under fire for their actions, but what the public didn't know was that Maya's family was already planning to take a stance. The days passed. The outrage only grew. People began to rally around Maya and her family, and protests started to pop up in front of the police station. But while the city was caught in the wave of public fury, Maya's family was working quietly behind the scenes. They knew they had to be strategic. This wasn't just about getting justice for Maya. It was about exposing a system of abuse and cruelty that had been overlooked for far too long. Malik, determined to take action, had secretly reached out to a lawyer known for taking on cases against police brutality. They'd been gathering evidence, tracking down witnesses, and even working with local activists who had their own history of standing up to corrupt authorities. Maya's parents, though devastated by what their daughter had endured, were more focused on making sure nothing like this happened to anyone else. They knew the battle would be long and hard, but they also knew the stakes were too high to back down. Then, just when it seemed like the pressure on the police was reaching its peak, something unexpected happened. One of the officers involved in the incident made a public statement. It was a twisted attempt at defending their actions, claiming that Maya had provoked them and that the incident was being blown out of proportion. His words only fueled the fire, making it clear that the situation was about to get much worse before it got better. The entire city was watching, and as tensions escalated, no one knew what would happen next. Would the family's plan succeed, or would the officers get away with their brutality once again? The final showdown was just beginning, and in a way no one saw coming. They had a secret weapon, one that could change everything. Just when it seemed like the tension couldn't rise any higher, A second twist turned everything upside down. A video surfaced online, a different angle of the incident. It was shaky at first, but the video went viral within hours, sparking outrage far beyond the city. National news outlets picked up the story, and the hashtag Justice for Maya flooded social media. Maya's family, already on edge from the mounting pressure, knew this was a game changer. But the stakes had just escalated even further. The police force, now backed into a corner, started to retaliate in subtle ways, pressuring witnesses, attempting to discredit the new video, and even putting pressure on the lawyer Maya's family had hired. It was clear they would stop at nothing to protect their own. Malik, furious but determined, knew that the fight had reached a breaking point. The family had expected some resistance, but they had no idea how deep the corruption ran. They were up against more than just a few rogue officers now. They were facing an entire system built to shield itself from accountability. Every move Maya's family made was being watched, and the fear of what might happen next was creeping in. As they prepared to take their next step, the tension in the air was palpable. Would the family's fight for justice be enough to break through the wall of silence? Or would the forces they were up against prove too powerful to defeat? The time for talking was over. Soon, the city would witness a confrontation that no one could have predicted. The night before the big protest, when the city was buzzing with anticipation, Maya's family received a call. It was from the lawyer, and the news was explosive. The department had decided to take a drastic step, suspend the officers involved in the incident, pending an investigation. For the first time, it seemed like they were acknowledging the injustice. Maya's family was overjoyed, but they knew better than to trust that this was the end. They had fought too hard to stop now. The following day, a massive crowd gathered, chanting for justice. The atmosphere was charged, a mix of anger and hope. But as the march approached the police station, something unexpected happened. A black SUV pulled up in front of them, and out stepped one of the suspended officers. The crowd froze, not knowing what to expect. He stood there for a moment, facing the crowd, and then, in a surprising twist, he dropped to his knees. "I was wrong," he said, his voice shaking. "I've seen the video, and I can't pretend I didn't play a part in this anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. People were in shock, unsure if they were witnessing an apology or a last-ditch attempt to save face. But the officer's face was filled with remorse, and his words felt genuine. The moment was a turning point, not just for Maya's family, but for the whole city. The police chief appeared shortly after, announcing an independent investigation into the entire department. It was a victory, though bittersweet. Maya and her family knew the fight for true justice wasn't over. But just when they thought the situation was settling down, something even more shocking came to light. The officer who had made the public apology wasn't the only one guilty of racism within the force. A series of leaked documents revealed that the problem ran much deeper than anyone could have imagined, leading to a complete overhaul of the police department. Maya's family had won a significant battle, but the war for justice was far from over. Still, they walked away that day knowing that their courage and their unity had sparked a movement. The city had been shaken to its core, and things were starting to change. But with the revelations that followed, no one could predict just how far this story would go. The fight had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, Maya and her family received an outpouring of support from around the country. The public pressure had forced real change, but the path forward wasn't without challenges. The police department's reform took time, but Maya's story became a beacon of hope for others who had faced similar injustices. Her courage and her family's relentless fight had started a ripple effect that spread far beyond their city. Maya found strength in knowing her voice had made a difference, though the journey ahead was still uncertain. Malik and their parents, proud of how far they'd come, remained committed to ensuring this wasn't just a fleeting moment, but part of a larger movement for justice and accountability. The incident with the officers had tested their family's resolve, but it also reminded them of their unbreakable bond and the power of standing up for what's right. In the end, Maya's story wasn't just about one family's fight, it was about a community coming together to demand change.